Hey everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. And before all of you start to panic and immediately send out search parties to look at where I am, it might look like I'm in a little bit of a dungeon, but I can tell you it's not. It is my babushka's basement. Well, not quite, but I am seeing hopefully my babushka in, at least Tanya's babushka in a week or two. I'm staying in Belarus for the next few weeks, and I've got a pretty nice setup so far, although you wouldn't think of it when you're kind of seeing the washing machine behind me. I'm slowly going to be adding to it, slowly improving it, and this is going to be the first iteration of a new production space that I'm going to have in Belarus when I'm spending time with the family. And this is the first time that we've been able to come here since the start of the pandemic, and it's absolutely wonderful to be seeing them again. All right, so without further ado, well, actually, let me put the forward in. I apologize for any kind of microphone quality, the camera quality, so on and so forth, lighting. It's all things that we're going to be working on. But when you're setting up something brand new, trying to procure other pieces of goods that you're so used to just getting off Amazon when you're in Belarus can be a little bit of a tricky thing. I'm going to be working on it. But as you can see, I'm using the same Corsair headset that I used last time I was in Belarus. It's been waiting for me to come back. A lot of people joke that I kind of caused the kind of apocalypse outside by setting up the mini PC, the streaming PC that I've actually taken with me. I got one use out of it, which was the last time you saw me streaming here. I'm really hoping that nothing else is going to happen, and I'm going to be able to keep this going. So yeah, without further ado, let's talk about the game, and specifically the Centurion 5.1 that I'm going to be playing, and why I'm calling this a beautiful British brew. This vehicle, I've talked about it on the channel before, is basically just a better version of the Centurion. And you can clearly see from the front of the armor, which I've shown, I believe on stream and also on a YouTube video once before, that it just has this extra thick plate that's been welded over the front of the hull. Just checking, I'm not blocking it off. No, I'm not blocking it off. That would be useful. And this is kind of the, I always joke that this is the pay to win in World of Tanks. There's basically a Centurion, which is about this good, and then they've added the kind of like the icing on top of the armor, and that's pretty much how a lot of the premium statistics kind of work out inside this game. The Centurion 5.1 is not that much better than the Centurion inside the Tier 8 tech tree, or alternatively, maybe even the Primo Victoria, the Swedish version of the Centurion, which you can manage to also pick up with a fancy crew, right? Although, when we think about it, the crew, not nearly as fancy as the new crew. I'm not sure if any of you have heard. I had no idea, by the way, but with the Stridsvagn K, it actually came with unique voice acting, a new version of the Swedish crew, which were obviously Sabaton with the vehicle's release. And they had unique voice acting. Wargaming didn't think that it was a big deal to tell us, and so inside my review of that, I think I just took any regular Swedish crew, or maybe even my Sabaton crew, with the old rendition of their voice acting, and managed to put that in there. Look, I gotta stay on focus. Centurion 5.1, where is this vehicle meant to be played? Clearly on a ridgeline. When you're playing a British tank with a good turret, not an incredible turret, but not a bad one, with Tier 8, you want to be able to get this thing on a ridgeline. Once you're here, then this thing starts to actually become pretty beautiful. And not just this big ugly thing that kind of gets caught out in the open. This one, better to get caught out in the open than your tech tree variant of the tank, which has not got the extra, the hull armor on top, the icing on the cake, as I called it. This vehicle, actually, when you are going hull down, it's not only when you're caught out in the open that the upper hull actually helps out. When you are going hull down and you have to expose yourself just a little bit more because maybe you can't penetrate the enemy tank in the turret, and you have to try and hit their hull to be able to penetrate them. That's where this armor comes in really handy, that little bit of extra, for when you have to make that extra push play to be able to try and find the hull. Because obviously, if you're trying to hunt their hull, you're exposing your own hull. It's something that a lot of people don't consider when they're pushing over on a ridgeline, especially Kranvang drivers. This E50 was giving me a little bit of a hard time by putting a gold round right through the front of my turret, as we can see here, just to the right of the gun, right through the mantlet on this tank. But we've managed to follow it up with a couple of rounds into them, and also some nice pressure play at the Progetto and the WZ. So in this situation, I want to highlight something that's really important, and that is that when you're going up on a ridgeline like this, if you go forwards and backwards, you are so much easier to be able to hit. So consider, when I've been fighting the E50, that I've been driving along the ridge line. As long as you line up your turret correctly, you shouldn't really expose yourself too much more. But what this does is it makes it so that you're a much harder target for the enemy to be able to hit. So in this situation, I'm just taking chancy shots at the Progetto as they're running away, and they're down to a single shot. And of course, I don't want to leave one of the most dangerous tier 8 premium tanks in the game, way more dangerous than this vehicle, I would say, a Progetto, alive. This vehicle, probably better than the Progetto in this kind of a situation where you're just sitting there, hold down, not needing to be able to use the mobility or even the auto-loading capacity of the vehicle. But I think all in all, there's a reason why more people would be taking Progetto 46 out onto the battlefield rather than the Centurion 5-1. Okay, so in this scenario, the SU got shot. He's going in. I asked for a little bit of help, and I'm going to come around and hopefully be able to get a couple shots into the SU, well, not into the SU, into the E50 to be able to help him out. Unfortunately for me, the E50 shuts down the SU, and I get hit by a high explosive round from a Scorpion. Now, it's not that one that actually hit me. I realize that there are not 2 Scorpions on the enemy team, but there's a Scorpion and a Scorpion G. Now, the Scorpion was firing high explosive rounds at me, and the Scorpion G, the one with the special style on it, is actually further towards the south. So I'm firing at the bush here, trying to see if my shells are going to disappear, seeing if we can manage to get a blind fire out, and there it is. There's the Scorpion. So I decided, considering that he fired another high explosive round, that I wanted to pressure them. To all intents and purposes, after somebody fires an HE round at you, it's quite likely they're going to fire another HE round. And now that HE has been so significantly nerfed, he's done 121 to me with the first shot, 55 with the second shot, and I really have to get out of that situation of having the possible flank of a Progetto. But the Scorpion actually followed up the HE shell with an AP shell, but he fired it badly, and it went along the side of my vehicle and ricocheted off. I put a great shot there into the tracks of the Scorpion. The K91 PT says they're going to help me out, and so I'm just going to stay hidden right now. Why wouldn't I let the K91 PT help me out? But unfortunately, the K91 PT gets shut down by the Progetto that was also down to a 1-shot on the enemy team. The Skoda also gets spotted down to a 1-shot. And so because my friend, the K91 PT, got shut down and he was unable to help me, I decided to take matters into my own hands and be more aggressive against the Scorpion on the rock, because the last thing that you want to do is to be caught out in this scenario. Especially when it's really just me on this flank now, and all of my team, even though we actually have one more tank than the enemy team, are situated towards the southwest. And so these are the kind of situations where you really have to be a little bit careful. You don't want to be full rush, you don't want to be full aggressive. You could argue that the play that I made against the Scorpion was aggressive, but I felt like it was the right thing to do in the situation. But in this scenario now, I have to be very careful about getting caught out, because if I do, it will allow the enemy to win this flank and to go around and to flank my friends. And there's the Progetto. But now I know exactly where they are. And I ping where the Progetto was, and I think to myself, hey, you know what? That Progetto was pretty low on hit points. Maybe, just maybe, I can try and find a sneaky position to be able to shut them down. I'm thinking, how can I get out of this one? How can I manage to both try and be involved in the game and try to progress the battle towards a victory for my team, but also not risk myself, get caught out, and then give the enemy all of this northern flank, which may allow them to pincer my team and be able to win the battle. So there's the Progetto down to 98 hit points, and I realized that along this ridge line, I'm not really able to use even my 10 degrees of gun depression at the steeper part of the ridge. But what I can do instead is swing all the way out, and while the ridge line is just as steep, because I'm going to be aiming slightly to the side, that means that I might even get a more sneaky opportunity to be able to handle the Progetto. It also means that I'm going to be further away from the Progetto, where if I fire, I'm not going to get spotted, and if I do get spotted, it'll most likely mean that there's an enemy in this bush location here, which gives me even more information. I'm going to poke up once, just a courtesy poke. Sounds weird, but bear with me as to where I'm going. By poking up there, we give the enemies a little bit of a courtesy, like, here I am, can you see me? Then we pull back once we see that we're not spotted because our sixth sense doesn't go off. And that makes me more confident to go up and take a couple of swings to see where the Progetto is. First two don't work. All right, well, why don't we just sit still, aim a little bit more to the right, and there we go. That's what you want. Got rid of that Progetto. Big play there. Getting rid of the autoloader and some of the vision that they were most likely pushing out from that position. But I know there's also a Skoda here as well. But I actually pop up and I managed to spot the Skoda. I see they fired, I see they're looking away from me, and so I'm going to take a chance by going up on the ridge line and shutting down the tier 8 Czechoslovakian premium heavy tank. And this game is now starting to look like it is firmly in my team's favor. But we've still got to be careful because we're one of the only tanks, I stand corrected, the only tank out on this flank. And the last thing that you want to do, once again, is to get caught. All right, so the WZ-111 GFT, I guess they thought they'd come and have a swing at me. Now that tank actually has a tier 10 tank destroyer gun. It's personally one of my favorite tank destroyers in the game. Not the tier 10 variant, but the tier 9 variant. WZ-111 GFT is a fabulous vehicle, and by having that tier 10 tank destroyer gun with all of its alpha damage, it means that I have to be very careful in this scenario because they can do 750 damage to me, and they've got 290 millimeters of penetration, which will be more than able to handle my vehicle. Luckily for me, however, the WZ-111G, after having coming and have a go at me, I guess they realized that probably they're at more danger from the 6 tanks actually to be exact. They're approaching towards the south, and that's brilliant. I'm just going to get a free farm in this scenario. Well, free farm right up until I take a gold round from the Scorpion G. Luckily for me, it looks like I was doing a little bit of blind damage against the player inside the bush. The Scorpion G on my team shuts down their WZ-111 GFT, and this big British brute, the boss of the ridge line here, is just locking down the flank and giving my team all of the pressure on the other side to be able to take down a beautiful round of World of Tanks. Look, this was a vehicle inside. It's not the best tank. It wasn't the best matchup for the vehicle, but it was a half decent one at that. And to be able to just control the flank, to hold the ridge line, yeah. And also the blind fires as well on the Progetto. This was just the all-round good, holistic game of World of Tanks. And one thing that I'd like to highlight is while we saw 3,700 damage dealt, and upon closer inspection, I can see that we actually dealt 4,700 damage here, giving us about 1,000 blind damage against the Scorpion, against the Progetto, and that is enough to give us a high caliber. And the 1,684 base experience was enough for an ace tanker with a good amount of credits made, as you would expect, playing a premium tank and doing a decent amount of damage. So all in all, the Centurion 5-1, a beautiful British brute. It's definitely not the best premium tank you're ever going to play, but it is decent enough on a ridge line. And I guess like me, especially when I'm playing ranked, it definitely is a bit of a brute within that regard. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video as it goes live on Sunday, it's time for the World of Tanks Tank Tree Showcase. Yeah, even moving country is not going to stop me on that one. And today, we're going to be playing another British tank. This one definitely isn't a big British brute. It's a tiny little British tank called the Manticore. It's an absolute fabulous light tank at tier 10. And so come along if you want to see the entirety of the British light tank line, which has some of probably the worst light tanks in the game, and also some of the better ones, if not the more interesting ones. But of course, I might be a little bit biased with regards to that. So really looking forward to seeing all of you live right now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.